Καλή σας μέρα.
Buenos días.
Είμαι
Good morning. Muy feliz. I'm very happy.
εισαγγελέα της Κούβας.
Que he aceptado. I'm very happy to be here in Cuba after having accepted the invitation of the dear Attorney General of the Republic of Cuba.
Άλλους γνωστούς και άλλους για πρώτη φορά τους συναντώ εδώ συναδέλφους.
And I'm very glad to be here, surrounded by so many colleagues, some of whom I've met in the past and others I have now met.
Που αγαπώ πολύ και έχει να κάνει με τα παιδιά.
I will talk about a topic that is very interesting. It has to do with children.
Είναι τα λόγια ενός παιδιού που μας λέει
What you have in the slide are the words of a children who says, listen to me, pay attention to me, get to know me, feel me, care for me, kiss me, support me, hold me, guide me, inform me, educate me, protect me. Thank you for recognizing my rights. I apologize because I'm going to speak in Greek. I would love to speak in Spanish, that most of you know and speak, which is a magical language. And I hope that with this visit to Cuba, I can learn some Spanish. Family is literally a sociological concept. The clause implies the primary social group where the bond of its members interweaves to a biological fact, sexual relation or reproduction. When that biological fact is embodied in law, it brings out the legal concept of family. The sexual relation becomes part of marriage or of the non-marital union, while childbirth is related to fatherhood and motherhood. Family is distinguished in patriarchal family, where more than one married couples are united under a common founding father, and in nuclear or conjugal family, which is composed of spouses and their children, underage or minors or not. In contemporary families, the form of nuclear family is predominant by the active presence of ulterior relatives, grandparents, etc. In the stream of time, family's functions have been severely modified. Family no longer fulfills economic, political, or religious functions like it used to. The basic purpose of the modern nuclear family is to develop a private space for the development of interpersonal affairs and the completion of human personality, as well as children's socializing. Ethical science is studied in family and nowhere else, according to Pascal. Family institution in urban areas mostly has suffered a radical alteration. The elevation of women's educational level and professional activity has led to new family shapes that are more democratically and equally formed. Thus, At the same time, serious problems have occurred concerning spouses' relations because of the role reclassification and the relevant conflicts on the one hand, and the relations with their offsprings on the other. A parental gap has been created. Interpersonal relations within the family demonstrate a lack of essential communication and the landslide into standardization and alienation. What must connect people, says Agelos Tersakis, a Greek writer, is not the proximity to each other or the symbiosis, but the feeling that they are serving a common purpose, that solidarity grips them, that they have accepted a collective cause, or that something transcendental, holy, and inviolable unites.
Του συναδελφώνει. Μια κοινωνία όμως όπως η σημερινή.
A society like ours, though, a society of wealth and consumerism, leads to the abolition of humans' mental dimension and raises youth resentment. An accumulated resentment, combined with the side effects of the contemporary dysfunction of family school work, can lead them, the youth, to an explosive aggression. It is worth noting what today's children say, according to a research of the Greek National Center of Social Research, as well as an inquiry that has been published in a daily newspaper of my homeland about the things that cause them stress concerning their feelings and the way they live in. 20 years ago, an 18-year-old teen could have precise targets: study, get a degree, get married, have children, get a car. For us, all of these are boring. We have nothing to pursue. What is the margin, what has been left for the development of imagination, when 18 hours out of the day's 24 have to be spent in lessons, schools, tutoring, and all the stress of achieving good grades so that can get over with that phase of my life? That was said by a 17-year-old. If you're interested in my opinion, today's biggest problem of human relations is that there are no ears to listen about what concerns me. A 19-year-old said that. For all these, doing drugs, loneliness that young people feel is to be blamed, as well as that there are no gathering places for young people, places where they can find warmth and affection, places where politicization has no place. According to the above comments, maybe feel their souls are empty. They feel oppressed and insecure. And these are the things that today's youth state and highlight as the major fact for their unlawful conduct. Either it is just simple non-compliance or it is an obvious rejection of social rules. The words of some of these underground hooligans, etc., are characteristic concerning their motives. My philosophy is violence just for violence, for the sake of violence wherever it leads. I don't care if that violence leads anywhere. I want to do what I like. I don't care about tomorrow. I go to football matches because it's where I can release steam and pressure. I feel free there. I don't have to think about anything. If my team loses the game, I don't know what I'm capable of doing. I could even kill another human being. According to a 20-year-old. Another 18-year-old said, for us, violence is not a way of living. It is the denial of the life we have been offered. It is a spontaneous act for not being satisfied. We have nothing to pursue. Bored and dullness, there's no room for imagination. I don't care about tomorrow. No one listens to me. I could even kill another human being because violence is the denial of the life we've been offered. Scream our children, shout to our children, there's loud slaps on the way we have chosen to raise them. However, let's see how our legal system tries to set the limits in which parents and children should interact or relate. According to Article 21, 1 and 3 of the Greek Constitution, family, marriage, motherhood, and childhood are under the state's protection. The state shall take the appropriate measures to protect the youth. The constitutional legislator has upgraded youth and childhood into an autonomous constitutional right. It is about the lawful privilege of minors to live according to their age so that they can enjoy affection, caring, preventative health care, psychological security, education, free time, and entertainment or leisure. The UN Convention for Children's Rights, signed in New York on the 26th of January 1990 and ratified by Greece later on, consists on the law of our country and is the constitution, so to speak, for children's protection. According to that convention, countries that have ratified it are obliged to update their legislation. Its provisions give guidelines for children's protection against abuse, children's labor, drug use, sexual exploitation, kidnapping, children's trade or trafficking, and other ways of exploitation. Greece's family law was updated first in 1983 and then in 1996 according to the convention as well. We live in a difficult era for both children and parents. The above-mentioned circumstances demand new, smart ways to teach our children basic human lessons from the heart, as well as basic sentimental and social and moral lessons to raise our children in a way in which they're willing to live. That need was never so urgent as today. Statistics ring as a bell. During the last decades, the number of homicides involving teenage perpetrators has quadrupled. The number of suicides has tripled, while the numbers of rapes has doubled. There is a burst out of juvenile delinquency, not only characterized by quantity, but also the increase in the level of cruelty. This burden falls on everybody's shoulder, but especially on parents. John Gottman, a psychologist and professor of the University of Washington in the United States, classifies parental types under the following categories. Distant, detached type of parent. This type of parent considers child's emotions trite or trivial and try to bribe their children with treats and promises. Critical, disapproving parents. This type of parent underestimates his or her child and punishes him or her because it expresses its feelings and emotions. Another type is the permissive or compromising type of parent, which allows his or her child to carry out its emotions and empathizes with it, but is not able to guide or limit or restrain their children's behavior. The accurate type of parent is aware of his child's feelings and emotions, gives the child a chance for intimacy and learning, listens carefully and closely to the child's negative feelings so that he can identify them, helps his or her child into finding words to express their emotions, set boundaries, and examine strategies to solve a particular problem. Like coaches who train athletes to face difficult games, parents ought to teach their children tactics to overcome the difficulties of life. They use emotional moments without disapproving feelings such as anger, sadness, fear, or stress in order to teach their children important lessons for life and build closer relations between them. Children's misbehavior or bad behaviors does not constitute a major problem when parents create bridges of communication and intimacy. Only love or love only is not enough. Compliance, obedience, and responsibility stem from love and emotional bonds that exist. Educate children emotionally within the family. Children behave according to their family standards. More importantly than ensuring nutrition or nourishment is for the parents to offer proper education and stable moral principles. They need to build their children's lives on values. Instill them with values which themselves must first follow and defend. They have to be very careful on how to immunize their children against the epidemic of violence that contaminates youth culture. They have to persuade them to postpone their sexual activities so that they will be able to make safer choices and informed choices. They have to develop them in order to grow their self-esteem, to enhance their self-esteem so they can avoid drugs and alcohol consumption. It is proven from researchers or by researchers that children are led to unsocial and deviating behaviors because of the problems they face within their family environments. Conflicts among spouses, divorce, parental indifference, negligence, abuse, and poverty are some of those negative circumstances they have to cope with. Consequently, the answer is to build happier marriages. Parents should have the appropriate financial and social support so that they can properly care for their children. During the last decades, there are reports for a dramatically increase in children's behavioral problems in school. The emotional pain children suffer and undergo when they're facing a divorce by their parent or negligence or abuse, either psychological, physical, or sexual, or different types of domestic violence within the family, or poverty, or other family conflicts cannot go unobserved or ignored by schools. If some of the signs that any of those circumstances exist is that children become indifferent, absent-minded, inactive, marginalized, or aggressive. They change their behavior because they can provoke with their behavior their schoolmates. And then something will come up, some signs will come up in order to get our attention, our interest, so that we notice them. They try to stand out so that we notice them. Let's remember that children and teenagers have perpetrated armed attacks in schools in the United States. In traditional families, like, for example, those in the countryside, all family members live in an organized, protective web or network of cooperation, function and interdependence and interaction. They act and behave according to what has been determined forever, which is familiar and expected from them. The family roles are predetermined. The bonds are inseparable based on day-to-day communication. In these families, bonds are cultivated between parents and children. There are no conflicts. Children are functional members of the family. Safe conditions are created and parents are allowed their children to act, to dare to be free. Children experience solidarity and there's social control. Parents whose families live in the impersonal and always changing urban region have to prepare their children for a role that even they haven't understood or accept. With a fragile balance, there is less communication. The roles are confused. Life is difficult. Individuals are isolated. There is a personal and individual internal search, doubt, compromising, hypocrisy, family conflicts, and a nuclear relation frame with no relatives, no interpersonal relations, no spontaneous amusement. Parents are weakened by their own social struggle and entrapped in the agony to protect their children from the harsh realities of life. Socialization and active participation of children and teenagers is the outcome of a flexible, open, and democratic family and society structure, where parents and social support is enough. Those children have a healthy model of a social individual and a good level of social participation for their children. The participation of children and teens has to be visible in reference to the social political subject as well as to an essential and honest psychosocial transaction. We must not forget our children when we make decisions within societies and on a social level. In 700 French cities for several years now, there are councils established for children from 9 to 18 years of age that serve for a 2-year term, with the scope of making suggestions to the local authorities on issues concerning the youth. Also in Greece, there are the teenagers' municipal councils. Another important initiative is the Teenagers' Parliament, which meets once a year every June in the Great Parliament in Athens, where teenagers from all over the country discuss and express their opinion on every major social issue that concerns them. It is hard to be a parent to date, but Plato's quote is clear and still relevant. It's either someone who doesn't decide to have a child, or if they decide to give birth and have children, they have to fight with them, raise them, and foster them. There are lots of toxic environments for children, like improper families where there is abuse and negligence, children in prison or that have one of the parents in prison, juvenile delinquency, suffering from mental disorder or mental retardation, children in institutions, children soldiers, unaccompanied children in the case of refugees, children who have been expelled from school, children who work as hard as if they were adults. The first and most important concern of our society should be education, 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 with good communication skills. We have to listen to our children with respect and attention, and then they will talk to us about their needs. Additionally, we can help our children to express their emotions through art, drawing, drama or theater, music, dance, and sports. And finally, we must encourage them to work voluntarily in healthy and social activities. The main measure to prevent minors' delinquent behavior is to teach them to love responsibility. They have to learn that a dream is worth when they're able to share it with others. They have to learn that what anyone is capable of doing might be just a drop in the ocean, but if that drop is missing, then there will be no ocean at all. Participation in cooperation activities and volunteer activities in schools is important. To endorse Gaudí's quote, "Be the change that you want to see in the world." The solution to handle a child's problems can be only one. Neither for the teachers nor for the judges, juvenile prosecutors, employees at the juvenile halls, the social services and workers, or the hotspot services or accommodation centers, or structures for the unaccompanied minor refugees. Each child is unique, and that is why we have to find unique solutions for each child, with the child and for the child. We have to co-decide. We have to find alternative measures to detain minors, and their detention should always be the last resort. For the reintegration of minors, we have to keep in mind that it starts long before they're released. It starts when they are in detention and shall continue after their release. Children carry a huge burdens from their birth. They were not born with problems. We create their problems, and then we give birth to our children into those problems. Have you ever seen a turbulent sea? Of course you have. In such a sea, we throw our children. Some of them will drown. Others will cope and manage. Others will use violence in order to float and survive. It is up to us to teach them how to swim, and to swim well, as long as we have provided them with life jackets. To accomplish that, we have to forget of ourselves. We must forget about our own interest, our convenience, our well-being. Either we are parents or professionals engaged with the youth. We have to overcome ourselves. We have to melt like a seed so that youth sprouts and flourishes. After all, isn't that the way to accomplish immortality? Lastly, or last but not least, we have to refer to the unaccompanied minor refugees, who are among the most vulnerable children with psychosocial trauma and with physical trauma, and who fled my country during the last years. They are like young crucified Christ who have come to knocking on our doors, and the only thing we have to do is hug them. Like Oscar Wilde's selfish giant who took in his arms the wounded little Jesus and won his place in paradise. Unaccompanied children from the ages 2 to 18 are in our neighborhood, in our cities, in many places of our country, Les Miserables of our era. They don't sing. They just speak in languages we don't understand. Their words don't sound like poetry or literature. When you meet them, their smell is unbearable. Their sight is unbearable. I would like to highlight that we need to protect our children and teens, and that is our first responsibility. I would like to conclude with a poem. The world can bring children to prosperity and ensure their complete happiness. Children learn what they leave, a poem by Dorothy Law Nalter, written in 1972. If children live with hostility, they learn to fight. If children live with fear, they learn to be apprehensive. If children live with pity, they learn to feel sorry for themselves. If children live with ridicule, they learn to feel shy. If children live with jealousy, they learn to feel envy. If children live with shame, they learn to feel guilty. If children live with encouragement, they learn confidence. If children live with tolerance, they learn patience. If children live with praise, they learn appreciation. If children live with approval, they learn to like themselves. If children live with recognition, they learn it is good to have a goal. If children live with sharing, they learn generosity. If children live with honesty, they learn truthfulness. If children live with fairness, they learn justice. If children live with kindness and consideration, they learn respect. If children live with security, they learn to have faith in themselves and in those around them. If children live with friendliness, they learn the world is a nice place in which to live.
Ο κόσμος που ζούμε είναι όμορφος. Σας ευχαριστώ. Gracias.
Thank you.